Hello everyone, it's Natasha from Treasure Books. I made over 20 journal covers over the last couple of days and I'm going to show you how. But first let me show you what you can expect to learn from this video because I do a few different things. So we're making these flap journals, something like this. They can be small, they can be large, they can have pockets. We're doing all the things. You would sew in your signature right over here and then you have this as a closure. And here is a really big one. So we're going to do one of those. Next thing I'm going to show you how to make is these journals with the spine. So all of these ones have spine and they can be small, they can be any size that you need. Next thing you will learn how to make are journal covers that are really easy and basic, but they look very special because we add things, we embellish them, we add closures. We'll talk all about that stuff. All different types of closures, all that kind of thing. And it all actually stems from this idea of making really simple covers, and that's where we're going to start off with. I'm going to show you how to make this simple thing, and then we progress to all of the other ones that I've shown you. And all you need for this project is some type of packaging. Look at this, perfect for a journal cover. Any type of cereal box, any type of box you can get your hands on. Even things like this, look at this. This would be perfect for a journal as well, the inside of a journal. And we cover the back with fabric. Things like this, if you have kids, if you have grandkids that use notebooks and any type of packaging. Because we don't care what's on this side. All we need is some type of a sturdy cardstock that has a blank side. That's all we need. The next thing you need is some type of fabric. So if you have little pieces of fabric like this, anything that you have on hand, if you have old pillows, for example, have a look around, have a look at thrift shops. You can find all this type of stuff. Little offcuts like this can make a little journal. Things like this. I make a journal in this tutorial using this fabric. It's not very thick fabric. And all you need are the things that I mentioned and a little bit of inspiration and a little bit of imagination. If you don't use a sewing machine or if you don't have one, don't let it stop you. You can still get crafty and just use glue. It perhaps is not going to be as durable as actually using glue and a sewing machine, but it can still be done. So without further ado, let's begin. Let's start with the basics. First, I'm going to show you how to make these really straightforward little ones. Once the basics are out of the way, we can really start having fun with this. You can start off with any size. You can see this one here, it's really quite large, 11 by 7.5. And then this one is tiny compared to it, but it really depends on the size of cardstock that you can get your hands on, the size of your cereal box or whatever, and the size of the fabric that you have. This is the one that I'm going to use, and I'm going to use this piece of cardstock. This is obviously, you can see from some type of a book. So it's going to be a little journal, and I just need to cut to size. And here we go. So that's perfectly cut to size. I want to have a little bit of fabric all around so I can cut off an edge. I always like to leave a little bit of fabric here on the side. And now before I do anything else, I'm going to fold it in half. Here we go. I always want to fold it in half before I place it onto the fabric. It's just easier that way. At this step, you can, if you want to, you can do some little stenciling in here if you don't like to have that white surface. Or you can just, I just sometimes leave it white, I sometimes stencil, but that's pretty much all that I do. The next thing that I do is I glue it down. I'm not using any strong glue or anything like that. I'm not making sure that it's evenly covered because I'm going to be sewing around. If I wasn't sewing, I would be applying a glue that I know is going to hold for a long time, which I don't really trust this glue to hold for a long time, especially when you have a really shiny surface like this. The reason why I'm gluing it down in the first place is because I want this to stay in place while I'm sewing around. And I apply a very thin layer of glue, and I make sure that I don't have any places where there's quite a lot of glue, if that makes sense. And the reason why I'm kind of spreading it out with my finger is so that there's no glue seeping through the fabric. If you have a thinner fabric, that glue is going to stain the fabric and then you have to find ways of fixing it. And sometimes that actually works in your favor. Like on this journal here, I had a little bit of glue seeping through and it was staining the fabric, and you can really see it on this dark fabric. And then I just glued down the book plate, and then I had an idea of, you know, adding book plates and other things like this, I suppose. So accidents can lead to some new ideas, I guess, but I try to avoid it if I can. I'm going to smooth everything down and then fold it. This is going to be my front cover. You can see it's peeling off straight away, but that's okay, as long as it's somewhat keeping it in place. I could always do something like that when I'm going to the sewing machine to make sure that everything's in place. All right, the next step is the sewing. I'm just using my Elna sewing machine. Stitch length is between 2 and 3. Standard thread, universal needle, and I'm starting on the back cover. So I don't want to start on the front cover. I'm going to start here at the back, and I'm going to sew all around this cardstock. Now it's difficult to see, but while I'm sewing, I'm keeping this bent. And then when I get to the middle, obviously it's going to be flat. And as I pass that middle, I fold the back up. And here we go, sewn all around. And the reason why you want to fold it before you start sewing, and the reason why you want to kind of fold it as much as you possibly can as you're running it through your machine, is so that you have, like I said, that extra little bit of fabric. Because you can see when I open it up, there's this extra fabric here on the spine, and that allows for my book to close properly. Because I've just done this, the book is opening, or this cover is opening. But you see, like with these ones, you give it a couple of hours and they just lay flat. They see. So that's why it's nice to have that little bit of give. You can see that extra fabric there. We need this. Otherwise, if you have this flat piece, let's say that you've just sewn this piece. This is my cover. When you go to fold it, you don't have any extra give in this fabric. So it's going to pull on the sides, and it will be a little bit of an issue. So back to this one. Now that it's stitched, all I have to do is get rid of the sides, cut this off. So I'm not sure if I want to perhaps use my pinking shears for this. Just want to see how it's going to look on this yellow fabric. And all fabrics are different. Like usually I test it to see how it's fraying with the pinking shears and how it's fraying with the normal scissors. This fabric isn't fraying at all, so I think I'm going to go with the pinking shears. But that's really a personal thing. I used pinking shears on this one and just straight scissors on this one. And now to cutting. And here we go. So that's this cover pretty much done. I don't know if I need to add something here. And then all of these little bits as well I'm going to keep. You can see we can add elements on our other covers, or even here I did a little embellishment last night and used a little bit of this yellow fabric, and that's a nice way to tie everything in. Perhaps this would look good. Could make a closure with this little snippet. I have some of this elastic lace, so perhaps if I glue these together and then sew at the back, I can have a little closure for this journal that kind of slips off like this. You can even go this way, and I think I like it better this way, easier to remove. So that's something that I can do with this. I actually really like that idea. I'm sewing this little fabric cluster directly onto that elastic lace that I have. And here we go, that's secured on there. I added a little stitch here and here so that it's not moving around. And now I just want to see how large I need this. And here we go, that's the back sewn. And the closure and the embellishment for the journal is done. I do have extra give here because I'm going to be filling it up with pages, and then also this can be a tuck spot for an envelope full of junk journal goodies or ephemera, you know. There we go, that's the basics. It's really simple. Next thing we're going to do is the exact same thing we've just done. We're just going to have a spine this time. So we can have this journal, for example, I can have 5 signatures, 6 signatures, and you know, I could have 3, 4 signatures in this one. I'll probably go with 3. So for this one we need something that already has a spine. So any box will do, cereal boxes, whatever this is, I don't know, chocolate boxes, anything that you have that already has a spine is perfect. You can go ahead and grab scrap piece of cardstock and make your own spine, score and fold and do that kind of thing. But it's just easier to get a box that's already ready for you. So I always look on the inside. I don't know if I mentioned this already, but for example, I wouldn't use this because I don't like this finish. I don't like how that looks. Compared to, for example, this. Look at the beauty of this. Looks absolutely beautiful. I've used that kind of thing. This was a huge popcorn box, and it just looks really nice compared to this. So the first thing to do is have a look at where it's glued. So I can see that there. Pretty much all of the boxes are glued. You can see this one is glued over here. And that's where I'm going to open my box. I'm just going to cut straight in the middle because I don't like the idea of having a thick part on my spine and then a thin here and thicker here. I don't like that. So now that I've opened all of this is going to be the spine. Now I can go ahead and cut off these bits, or what I like to do is I'm going to fold them back. So this gives me extra sturdiness on my journal around the sides. I like the idea of having really thick and sturdy covers, right? So this one, you can't see it. You might be able, I can't really feel it because this material is the way it is. But this is a little bit of a thinner material, and when I run my hand down this cover, I can kind of feel the ridges. So that's one thing to keep in mind. I don't mind that at all, but what we're doing is we're folding this back like this, and we have this sturdy outside, right? And the reason why I'm folding it back, of course, is because that's all going to be covered with fabric, and we want the inside to look perfect. And I like to have these tapered because it's kind of hard, you work this out, but when you start folding, like, I don't want to have a whole layer of unnecessary cardboard. One layer is fine. So what I do is I go around and I taper those edges at all of the corners. See what I mean? I mean, maybe this is being a little bit overly pedantic, but I don't want anything to be in my way when I'm making this book, when I'm opening the book and all that sort of stuff. You can see this is ripped here. It's fine because once I fold it back, it looks perfect. So I actually use the double-sided tape for this. If you watch my videos, you know I'm not a fan of double-sided tape because over the years it can start seeping through. However, I think that happens with thin paper and thin fabric, and because this is going to be sandwiched between cardstock pieces and then we have the fabric on top, I'm not worried about that issue with double-sided tape. Just in case if you don't know what I'm talking about, this was a gift, and this came up about a year after it was gifted to me. Look at all of that. Oh, see what I mean? Double-sided tape. But this paper is quite thick, so it, all that oil seeped through. But like I said, I'm not too worried about this because, thick cardboard and fabric, and I think it will be fine. Also, when I'm placing these down, I don't want to put it next to this edge because that's where I'm going to be sewing. So I'll put it kind of in the middle. And here we go, glued down. Everything is out of my way. Everything looks perfect here on the inside. I might ink some edges and do some stenciling if you don't like that white stark look. Okay, now that that is ready, we're going to do the exact same thing that I did here. But I'm just going to choose the fabric that I want to use. And at this point, I kind of look at where everything is going to sit and how everything is going to look. I kind of decide what's going to be the front, what's going to be the back. If there's creases in the fabric, I usually use my hair straightener, which is not a hair straightener anymore. I use it to iron fabric just like this. If I have some, it's not hot, but if I have some creases, I have this next to my desk. My iron is all the way upstairs, so it's just easier this way. And now, let's have a look. How's this gonna look? I'm not too excited about this fabric, only because I've already done one with that fabric. So, see, I'm gonna use this one, and I'm actually going to have to iron it with my hair straightener first. This is a really good project for using up these leftover pieces of fabrics that you have, or cardstock, cereal boxes, that kind of thing. It's really quick and really easy, and the secret is in adding the extra touches, embellishing, adding a book plate, and it makes all the difference. I use this hair straightener for ribbon too, look. That's actually why I brought it down here, and it just stayed here with me. Here we go, perfect. That's going to be my front cover. So now we're adding the glue here, and this is actually quite good. This is quite a thin fabric, and glue can very easily seep through this. And I'm going to show you on a scrap, this scrap here, and especially, you know, when you're pressing down to glue your thing down, and then oops, you have this seeping of the glue, and then even when it dries you can still see it. So when I'm dealing with thin fabrics, I'm really very careful at this step. I will add my glue all over like I usually do, and you know, most of the time I'm gonna stay away from the folds, so I don't usually go and apply glue on the fold. And you know why? Because that's where the fabric moves. You see, when you open any journal, the extra fabric that you see will be, you can't really see on this fabric, but you most definitely can see on this fabric. See, when I open that journal, that's where the extra fabric is. So if that is glued onto the spine, it's going to be difficult. You know, you have to have that give somewhere. See here, like the give has to be somewhere. So I don't generally apply glue anywhere but the panels, never on the bendy parts. So I'm going to look at it against the light and make sure there's no glue pooling. I can see a bit of extra glue here. And as I was doing this, I just had a thought. You know, this is one of those things, I've always done it this way, and that's why I'm doing it this way. But I'm just thinking, I actually have never tried glue stick. I wonder if glue stick will be even easier and better to use. And maybe I'll try it with my next one. Smooth it down, turn it over. This is going to be the moment of truth. If there is some seeping of the glue, it doesn't come up straight away. It takes a little bit of time for that to seep through, and you can actually see those ridges, and I don't know how I feel about that. Look. You know, I don't feel good about it. I was contemplating ripping the whole thing off, but it's gonna be fun. I'm just gonna keep going with it, and I just want to show you those, you know, the creases that were still left in the fabric. Once everything is smoothed down, they disappear. All right, I'm gonna take this to my sewing machine, do exactly the same thing that I've done with the first one that I showed you, exact same way, just gonna sew all around. And you see, if I sew all around this way, I'm gonna have weird spots in my fabric, and that's why when I'm sewing, I'm holding everything bent. So I think you know what I mean. And here we go, it's sewn all around. And as I was sewing, I wanted to mention something. A lot of ideas that I come up with as I'm trying to find a solution for a particular problem. For example, on this one here, like I said, I've done this whole thing, and then when I was stitching this on, and then it's all perfectly done and finished, and then I look at the front cover and I notice a big dark splotch of glue that seeped through. It wasn't not visible, it was very visible. And then I thought, what am I going to do? And you know, it's not anything that's groundbreaking, adding a book plate, and I added a book plate on this one as well. And then I thought, what else could I be adding onto this flap? And that's how I came up with this pocket idea for pens. Anyway, all of that kind of came up from the glue accident. So when something like that happens, I just go with it and then see if I can work out how I can fix it. So for example, in this case here, you can really see those ridges. I can really see those ridges. They might bother you, they might not. They bother me a little bit. Perhaps I'm going to do something about it. I'm not sure yet. Let me know what you do when something goes wrong. Do you get frustrated and throw the whole thing away? I don't, and I think most of us don't, because we put so much work and thought into it, and we have these fabrics and things that we want to use, and perhaps they're sentimental and dear to us, whatever. We don't want to just throw it away. There's a part of me that gets excited when I know that sounds really corny, but there's a part of me that feels excited about the challenge of fixing a problem. The only thing I would do differently in this one is, instead of folding those edges back, I would just chop them right off, just cut them right off. As you can see, if you're using very thin fabric, it kind of shows. Of course it shows when I'm looking at it, you know, very closely like this. That looks really, really nice. See that stitching? It just looks really nice. And those perfect folds there, why not use a cereal box that already has those perfect folds in there? But now I'm just wondering if I should do something about this. I'm inclined to leave it as is, but because I just spent all this time talking about possible solutions, I feel like I have to give a possible solution. So perhaps what I could do is embellish it somehow. I can pop a little bit of something here, and of course here at the back as well. Because as soon as like you can see those ridges, right? As soon as I do this, you can't notice these ridges here. When I take that off, like you can really see it. I don't know, how does that happen? You could do a pocket, perhaps like this, and it can be, the whole thing can be part of your design, and then you have ephemera pieces sticking out. You're kind of hiding that cover. So if that's an issue, then you wouldn't go with something like this. And exact same thing I would do at the back. I would just go with this. And here we go. I'm just actually gluing this down onto the cover. I could sew it on, but then I would see the stitching on the inside of the book. So if I decided to stitch this in, I would have a second line running here, which would look quite nice, but I decided to just glue it on. And now that that's done, the front and the back, I feel like I need something here. Maybe a little book plate or something like that. So I'm just using a little offcut piece of that material. Maybe a little bit of this gold mesh first. Here we go. I have just sewn a few pieces together, and now I'm gonna apply this book plate that I have. I'm gonna hold it in with some brads. And little book plate ready to go. Yes, I do like it. And I'm just gonna now glue this to this. See that fabric, the excess of fabric, what I was talking about before. But once, you know, when the journal is the way it's supposed to be, there's no issue. These are the three that I made that have the spines. And this one here, I added this closure before everything was glued on, and before the buttons were sewn, I added the closure underneath the heart, and then I sewn, and this piece was then glued onto the cover. And then this closure, it's sewn at the back as well. And I tried to use the same line of sewing so it's not so visible, I guess. But then this one here, the cover is quite busy. I mean, this fabric is quite busy. It's quite thick. You can't see any of those ridges, that's for sure. And it's just beautiful as it is. So I didn't actually add anything on this. Perhaps something like this. This is a headband. Something really simple that's going to hold this journal closed. Once it's full, it might need a closure, and it might just be a little something like this. But definitely really happy with this one, and the more I look at it, the more I like it. Next one I'm going to do is one of these that open up, and the signature is going to be sewn in here, and then I have this flap, and I leave extra space in here because I will be having a signature in there, so I need that bit of extra space in order for my journal to be able to be closed. All of these pieces that you can see on the cover were added after I've done the sewing and all of that. Just like what I've done on here, I do the cover first and then I add the extras. And this is a good way to use up all of those little extra little pieces that you have left over from making the covers. And then this one here, I didn't actually put any cardstock on that flap there. I just used one of these clips, I forgot what they're called, to keep that one closed. So for this one, I want to use this large piece of fabric that I have. So I think I'm going to make another large journal, and I'm using this packaging simply because it's quite large, so I have lots of cardstock to work with. And I also want to use this up. This is a leftover from something, I can't remember what, and I think I'm going to do that next. But first, let's do this. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up, and it looks quite good inside. It's not damaged in any way. And now first I'm gonna get some straight edges happening. Okay, here we go. So now I can already see how high my journal is going to be, and now I'm just gonna fold it maybe here, and I can already see that this isn't going to be enough for the flap, so I might have to cut a little extra piece from the other panel that I have. Cutting that piece off, And here we go. So this is going to be the side of my journal, and now I need an extra piece. Maybe I don't want to have a large flap. I could have just a little one like this. I think I want something a little bit wider, so I'm going to cut another piece. If you're like me and you keep all of the packaging that comes into your life, luckily there will be no shortage of packaging that you can use. And now I want this the exact same size, or height I should say. And here we go. That's how it's going to look. And when it folds over with that extra bit of fabric, perhaps it's a bit too much, you can play around. You can see this one only comes halfway, whereas this one here goes all the way. I even had to cut some off because they went even further. And then this one again, nearly all the way. So you can play around with how wide you want the flap to be. But first I'm going to pop this to the side, and I'm only going to work with this, and I'm going to do the exact same thing that I did for this one and all of these that I made. So I'm just simply going to work with just this piece of cardstock first. So here's my fabric that I want to use, and now apply glue all over, but not on the spine. This is quite a thick fabric, so I don't think I have to worry too much about glue seeping through. All right, now I'm going to the sewing machine. It's a little bit tedious when you have all this fabric flailing about, but kind of try to hold it in place. And here we go. This is what I have so far. So that's all. The step one is done. And now I need to glue my panel on somewhere around here. Just want to see how it's going to look. Something like that. That will be good. So I'll leave about maybe an inch of space just here. Apply the glue. There we go. And you might have noticed I don't even wait for the glue to dry. I just go straight to the sewing machine. And now I just want everything to be in, aligned. So I left a little bit less than an inch. I mean, it doesn't really matter. You can leave more, you can leave less, whatever. Like for example, if you want to make a flap for this type of journal, because you have such a wide spine, you have to leave a wide space there because you'll have all of your pages in there. So this is going to be one signature book, so I don't really need a whole lot of space. Anyway, so now I'm going to go to my sewing machine and just sew all the way around this piece of cardstock. And here we go. So that's all sewn in, you can see. Now I'm just going to cut around the whole thing, and here's how it's looking so far. So what I could do with this is, this doesn't really go, but let's just imagine I can make a little pocket. I could make this into an art journal, for example, because it's a nice large size. I can have my paint brushes in that pocket at the front. If I was to use that as an art journal, I would probably bind in pages like this from, really good quality, thick pages that can take paint, acrylic paint, watercolors, and all that kind of stuff well. So that's an idea. But I do have a little bit of an issue, and that's this here. I didn't think that that glue is going to seep through, but it did in this spot. And straight away it gave me an idea of having something like, perhaps something like this that can be part of my closure. Maybe I can use this gold thread. I don't know how it's going to look. The only issue I'm having is if I'm going to sew those buttons on, I'm going to be ruining the inside. The option is to glue it on, but then how secure is it going to be, and what if it comes undone, and I don't want to risk it. So I then need to come up with a solution for the inside, and I already know what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to sew this button right through, both of them right through the cardstock. I'm going to use some embroidery floss to sew that button on. That's looking good so far. Maybe I'll go through it twice just to make sure, and then tie a knot on the inside. And now I have this bulky bit here, which I'm going to have to do something with, and I'm going to do that next, straight after I sew this button on. And here we go, buttons glued. And now I have these bits inside, and I'm going to cover them now. But before I cover them, just to be on the safe side, I'm going to add a tiny little bit of glue and let it dry somewhat, just to make sure that that's not going to unravel, because there's going to be quite a bit of pressure placed on those buttons every time we wrap the twine around. So that's why I just want to make sure. There we go. That's not dry yet, doesn't matter. I'm going to use a little bit of masking tape and flatten that down as much as I can. I'll come back to this in a moment. I just want to add the closure. So I just cut a little piece off, and I'm gonna wrap it around this button, tie a knot underneath, tie another knot up here, and then why not another one over here. And here we go. Kind of looks nice, like a little pouch, doesn't it? This is what I mean, like you have that little mistake, you go to try to cover it up, then you start coming up with other ideas like, wouldn't this be a nice little pouch? Make it like this. Maybe add some little beads here. Anyway, I'm gonna leave this for now because that's done. But now I'm gonna cover these. I'm going to use some scrapbook paper and I'm going to make a pocket. Here we go. So I added a little bit of an edge. You can see that little wiggly edge and a little bit of sewing around. And now I'm just gonna glue down the 3 sides. So that's gonna be a pocket. Is it ideal? Probably not, but it's just one of the solutions, I guess. And notice how I said one of the solutions. We have 2 pockets here. We could have done any number of things, but I wanted to do this type of closure because I haven't done it before. I've done it on envelopes and pouches like this, but I haven't done it like this, I don't think. And so what's going to happen is I'm going to have a signature sewn in here. I could add the exact same thing on this side and have a pocket on both covers. Once that's dry, you know, this is just something I had on my desk. I can pop in pieces of different types of ephemera, envelopes, all sorts of different things in there. I think that worked out pretty well. And maybe it will be nice to have a little bead or 2. And here we go. I couldn't resist. I added some little beads there. And I'm going to call it done. And the last one I'm going to do is this one here. I'm just going to split it all up, perhaps do it off camera. I'm just going to cut up a cereal box that I have. Here we go, cereal box cut. And I'm going to try a glue stick this time and see how I go. It seems to be working just as well, I guess. Here we go, sewn all around. This was supposed to be the back because I started sewing there, so it was supposed to be this way, but I decided last minute I want to do something with this. And I'm not going to actually put any cardstock on there. I just want to leave it as it is, but it keeps opening, so that's going to be a part of my closure, I think. So here's what I did. I added an eyelet, and now I would add a closure to go around, but as I was working on it, I noticed there's a little section here where this fabric is kind of peeling off. So that is why I'm just gonna cut this thing off, even though that looks really quite nice. I can't really leave that on there. That's unfortunately kind of what happens with this type of fabric, so it just is what it is. So I'm going to make a little book plate instead, and perhaps I can somehow utilize this. I'll try and see what I can do, and I'll show it to you when it's done. And here we go. And here we go, gluing this down. Made a little book plate. I just painted this. It's not even dry yet. This is a chipboard piece. And then I have this on my desk. I don't know if it's gonna work, but a little dangly, that doesn't look good. Maybe I can have a little butterfly hanging there like that, or a gold leaf. I like the gold leaf. Or maybe something like this, and then I can add the leaf there. I'm quite happy with that. And then now I was thinking, instead of leaving this blank, I could do a little something like this. And all glued down, and I'm calling it done. I think it looks even better than having that flap. Having this on the front does add a little bit of bulk, so it might get in the way of writing, but that's nothing that a writing board can't fix. Out of the 4 journals that I made today, I think these 2 are my favorite, and I think this one is winning. I did some new elements that I haven't done before, like this closure here and this element over here. So I definitely learned something new. These are the ones with the spines. These are the ones that open up. I haven't shown you how to do this one, but it's pretty self-explanatory. You just do 2 folds over here to get that element. Then I have all of these basic ones, all different sizes, just cardstock and just fabric and sewn around. Then these follow the same rule of those basic ones, but then we add a little bit of something on the front, like I did here, a book plate. This is quite a large one. I'm really loving this size. And then these little ones like this, and this is the final one with the clip. I love them all, some more than others, but I really enjoyed doing all of the different things, and the possibilities are endless. We can just keep imagining all the things that we can do with this wonderful craft. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.